Hello, Ruben with Camp Hatch here, and this week we answered the question of, is it a good idea to put your camper electrical system into your minivan camper in such a way that you can still use your house power when you are in passenger mode? So we have pulled most of our camper stuff out, the bed and such, and we've got our seats back in, and we had a need to have some food, cold and hot, after church this Sunday for an event, and we found that having the electrical system and outlets and such, like this one, in the van with the passenger seats in it and not attached to the furniture like the bed and stuff that comes in and out, we found that to be very, very convenient this week. I'll note that this is a van that's old enough I don't care about lowering its resale value by cutting holes in the panels and putting outlets in. It's just not going to really reduce the value of this van very much for its age. So easy decision for us, but we found this to be very very handy this week as we had this food event after church today. So most of our camping stuff, the bed, the cabinetry, kitchen in the back, is out of the van right now. All 7 passenger seats are in, and some are folded down, but this is what we left in, which proved to be handy for today. It's our 200 amp hour battery. In the gray box is our fuses and bus bars, and in front of the gray box is our Renogy inverter charger. We pulled the center console out for that, so we just set the handy plastic box on top of it. This is the 120 volt breaker coming out of the inverter. So this is inverter AC off the battery or through the switch if we have shore power. And this is just the remote power button for the Renogy, which kind of floats around on its cable right now. And I hope to get mounted up more like in a dashboard mount eventually, but not there yet. I did bring out one plug just out of the box in a real simple way so that we could plug power in up front, thinking if this is kind of where the head of the bed is, and so that might power something like a CPAP machine or such in the front of the vehicle. The other outlets are powered coming out of the box here, and the bus bars under the floor mat, underneath the door trim, and then we get into this rear kind of inner fender panel where I cut in an electric box here that the 2 crock pots are plugged into, and then all the way at the back is another outlet and a switch that feeds So that switch is right inside there, and it feeds the 2 outlets out here. So this is shore power in on an extension cord, and this is if you want shore power out. And I went ahead and added this switch back here for the power out, just so that I'm not feeding power to those outside outlets when I don't want to be in parking lots or heavy rain or anything like that. There is one more element to this system. This is a 16 amp breaker, and that is the shore power coming in. So if I plug power into the van here, it comes in through a breaker just right on the inside. That feeds the inverter, which would in turn feed this outlet. And if we come over to the passenger side, it's really easy to come up here and see where we've replaced the center console of the Sienna, and our inverter charger is down below here. And I can see that with the 2 crock pots plugged in, and I think they're both on warm right now, and I'm pulling 180 watts on the inverter, and it's about 9% of my output. It's a 2000 watt inverter. So crock pots worked, and it was really handy for us today. Of course, one way to know what a appliance might draw, is to look at its rating. The small one's 190 watts. And my large crock pot, shaky hands, 240 watts. Let's see how they actually do. So for our little outing today, I wanted to check and see how our crock pot actual power usage was going to work with our inverter in our camper van. So using our handy little meter here, I've got set to wattage. And I've got crock pot off to start with. And we'll just go to low. $122 watts on low, going to high, about 190. And if I go on warm, should be the difference. $70. So what we can see there is we've got a 70 watt element, a 120 watt element, and if it's on high, they're both turned on for 190. That's my little crock pot. So there we go, our measured wattages, very close to our rated wattages on both crock pots. So let's do a little math that can be very handy for camping off grid and such. Let's total up our load. I'm just gonna add, whoops, I'm really needing to get a photographer stand here. 190 plus the 240, so 430 watts. And I'm just gonna use, since it's so close, I'm just gonna use the rated wattages. I do want to mention one thing here that's really important. A lot of appliances that you might plug into your inverter are gonna have a larger inrush amperage, a higher initial wattage than their operating wattage, and depending on what they are, that can affect what your inverter is going to need to be able to do. So I did not have my meter showing maximum wattage. I had it showing instantaneous, but it has another feature where you could flip over and see what the maximum wattage was, and that's a really useful thing for seeing what it's actually going to pull at startup, because you might have something like a refrigerator kick on and everything looks really good, but it's just the inrush of the compressor motor is enough to trip it out. So just something to be mindful of. Use that maximum wattage or amperage feature as needed or when in doubt. And make sure you're cold starting stuff when you do that. All right, back to this. So I need 430 watts, but how long can my battery, my house battery, power both of those appliances? Well, if this was on the AC side, it'd be really simple, because watts just equals volts times amps. So I would just take that 430 there and divide it by my 120 volt, and I'd see that I'm pulling about 3.6 amps, no problem. But what's my house battery rated in amp hours? What's it gonna do? Well, I like to figure that my inverter is good for about 85% efficiency, and my battery is about 12 amps. So I'm gonna do just 12 amps times my 85% efficiency. And when I do that, that comes out to just about, that's 12 volts. So 12 volts, 85% efficiency. So I'm gonna actually act like my battery runs at 10 volts, because it's a really handy number for doing math. So I'm gonna say that I've got a 10 volt battery, since I'm using a 12 volt battery to power an inverter. And this is just gonna make, it's just gonna make my math really simple, right? So 430 watts ,30 watts, and I'm going to divide that by my 10 volts. and I'm going to see that what I need is 43 amps of juice. So my battery is probably feeding that inverter when my crock pots are plugged in on high power. It's probably pulling about 43 amps from my house battery. Now, I've got a 200 amp hour battery that will run down to, you can run 80% of its max power out. So it'll hold 200 amp hours, but if you actually do that, you'll ruin your battery. So they give you 80%, so that's I'm just a 0.8. So I'm really gonna run that battery for 160 amp hours, right? So now it's really simple. I take my 160 amp hours and I divide by my 43 amps. Just like that. I'm going to do that one up here. And I should be able to run for about 3.7 hours. So that's a nice way to estimate when you know a load about how long your house battery should be able to power that load. I'm going to run out, plug my crock pots back in, and see how close to 43 amps I'm really pulling on my house battery, just to see if my approximation math through the volt amps and the 85% efficiency is any good. All right, we are back in the van with the crock pots plugged in. They're turned on, but I've killed the power out up here. So my inverter's on, 119 volts output, and I've got my clamp on meter on my house battery. So the inverter there with really no load on it, it's pulling 1.4 amps just sitting there. So I'm gonna flip the breaker. This will send power to the crock pots, and we'll see both what our volt amps here say, and we'll see what our meter does here. We were looking for 43, as I recall. And we're not getting 40. We weren't getting 43 there. We were getting 36.6. So my 85% efficiency is a very conservative number, which is right in line with what the specs of this inverter say it should be doing with this level of load. But I really use the 85% for estimating my battery life. So it's good to be conservative. And that number 10, as far as acting like it's a 10 volt battery, is just super handy, because I like dividing bigger numbers by 10. So yeah, good rule of thumb number for battery life in amp hours. One other aspect of our electrical system on the house side is outlets, and I went ahead and bought them with the kind of cigarette lighter adapter and USB. We put a little bit of tape over the light that lets you know they're powered, because they're kind of bright at night. So I've got one of these up here. We haven't permanently mounted any of these because we're not exactly sure where we want them. I put another in right behind this passenger seat to get two of them close to the head of the bed for phone charging at night. This is the original one, so this is on the starter battery of the van, and I added one next to it because this is our kitchen area back here. So that's a really high amperage one for like if you want to buy a 12 volt water heater pot. I wanted to make sure I had enough amperage for that. And then I put another one in down here, just like a 15 ampere, and I've got our cooler, our refrigerator cooler plugged into that, which was really handy getting ready for our little food related outing this week, because we could easily haul groceries in it around on the house battery. Plenty of juice in that 200 amp hour battery to power this cooler for a good long time. So I've got everything unplugged, crock pot and refrigerator wise. And I'm going to do one last thing before I shut my inverter off. I'm going to check my battery voltage with no load on it. And it's at 13 volts, which, if I remember correctly, is the perfect storage voltage for this lithium ion battery. So it worked out really well.